I never thought I'd attend my sister's wedding as a guest, let alone the kind of guest they hide in a corner. The ballroom at the Rosewood shimmered with crystal chandeliers and the sound of laughter that didn't include me. Every table near the dance floor overflowed with family and old friends, all glowing under the warm lights. Mine, tucked by the far window, sat half in shadow. The overflow table, they called it, a polite way of saying unwanted. I traced the rim of my champagne glass, untouched, watching as the photographer captured another round of smiles I wasn't part of. My dress, pale gold silk, clung to my shoulders just right. I'd chosen it deliberately, elegant but understated. Let them think I was the struggling one, still searching for my place. They had no idea how far from struggling I'd come. Can you believe she showed up? I heard someone whisper behind me. I smiled faintly. I could believe it. They'd never understood that silence isn't surrender. My phone buzzed against the table, lighting up with a name I hadn't seen in months. Ethan Blackwell, the billionaire. The man whose call could turn any room upside down. I felt my pulse quicken as I looked across the ballroom, just as the doors opened and gasps rippled through the crowd. He was here. And every head, including my family's, turned toward the man walking straight toward me. 3 years ago, I stood in the same kind of glittering room, but that time, I wasn't invited to sit at any table at all. It was my sister Madison's engagement dinner, and I was the embarrassment they'd hoped would quietly fade into the background. Dad had poured himself a whiskey, already red-faced from pride. Mom floated around greeting guests, introducing Madison and her fiancé, Tyler, like they were royalty. I remember standing by the buffet table, holding my cheap clutch, rehearsing how I'd tell them I'd just quit my job to start my own design business. When I finally spoke up, the laughter came almost instantly. You, Dad chuckled. Sweetheart, you can't even keep your rent paid. Starting a business? Madison smirked over her wine glass. Maybe start with something smaller, sis, like learning not to bounce checks. Their friends laughed too. I felt my cheeks burn. My throat ached from holding back tears. But the real sting came from Mom's silence. She didn't defend me. She just looked away, pretending she didn't hear a thing. I left before dessert, clutching my purse so tightly the strap broke. Outside, it was snowing, soft flakes landing on my lashes as I stood beneath the streetlight, too numb to move. That's when my grandmother's pendant slipped from my hand, the one she'd given me before she passed. A tiny heart engraved with the words, "Your worth isn't up for debate." I remember staring at it through my tears and whispering, "I'll prove it, Grandma. One day they'll see." That night, I packed my things for my tiny apartment and drove to Chicago with nothing but that pendant and a folder of sketches. I had no plan, no funding, no backup. Just a promise to myself that I'd never again let anyone decide where I belonged. As the city lights came into view through my windshield, fear gave way to something else, a strange, stubborn spark. Maybe they were right that I had nothing, but that also meant I had nothing left to lose. And that's exactly how my new life began. Chicago was cold in every sense, the kind of place that didn't care who you were, only what you could deliver. My first few weeks were brutal. I slept on a friend's couch, sending pitch emails by day and waiting tables by night. My dreams of building a design studio felt naive, but every time I thought about quitting, I'd touch the little heart pendant around my neck and whisper, "Not yet." Then came my break, or at least the start of one. I landed an internship at a boutique architecture firm called Blake and Howell, though I was older than most interns and painfully overqualified. I fetched coffee, proofed presentations, and quietly absorbed everything. My sketches started catching the attention of one of the firm's clients, Ethan Blackwell, a billionaire investor known for his no-nonsense style and impossible standards. He saw one of my redesigned mock-ups accidentally left in a meeting room. The next day, he called me into his office. "You drew this?" he asked, his sharp gray eyes scanning the page. My heart was pounding. "Yes, sir. Just a concept." He leaned back. "It's bold. Different. You think you can handle a real project?" That single question changed everything. Under Ethan's mentorship, I learned what it meant to merge vision with execution. He never treated me like an assistant or a charity case. He challenged me, pushed me harder than anyone ever had. Late nights turned into early mornings. I started leading small projects, then full redesigns. Within 2 years, I launched my own firm, Lena Heart Designs, with Ethan as one of my first investors. I poured everything into that company, my pain, my pride, my defiance. We focused on sustainable, luxury interior spaces, and somehow, word spread. A magazine feature led to corporate clients. Corporate clients led to million-dollar contracts. But I never told my family. On social media, I stayed quiet, posting photos of coffee cups and city sunsets, not boardrooms or business awards. When Madison texted once, asking how life was, I simply replied, "Good. Keeping busy." In truth, I was thriving. I bought my first penthouse overlooking the lake. My team grew from 2 to 20. The woman who'd once been laughed out of her own family dinner was now advising CEOs, including the same people who'd once ignored her emails. Still, there were nights when I'd glance at my reflection in the office glass at 2 a.m. and feel that old ache. Success hadn't erased the memory of their laughter, it had just made it quieter. Sometimes, when I clasped the heart pendant before bed, I'd whisper, "Almost there, Grandma. Almost." I didn't know it yet, but fate had a cruel sense of timing, and it would bring my past crashing into my present at the one place I least expected, Madison's wedding. When Ethan walked into that ballroom, every sound seemed to pause, the laughter, the chatter, even the music. The chandeliers caught the reflection of his black suit like a mirror of power itself. Guests straightened in their chairs, whispering, "Is that Ethan Blackwell?" My sister Madison froze mid-laugh, her hand still clutching Tyler's arm. My parents exchanged confused glances. Ethan scanned the room briefly, then locked eyes with me, calm, deliberate, certain. He began walking through the crowd, ignoring the host trying to greet him. Each step echoed across the marble floor. By the time he reached my corner table, the room had fallen completely silent. "Lena," he said, his tone warm but commanding, "you weren't easy to find in this crowd." I smiled softly, rising from my chair. "You know me," I replied. I blend in where I'm told to sit. A few quiet laughs rippled through the guests, unsure and nervous. Madison's brows furrowed. "You two know each other?" she asked, her voice brittle. Ethan looked at her, then at my parents. "Of course. Lena and I have been business partners for almost 3 years. She's one of the sharpest minds in sustainable design." Gasps. Actual gasps. My mother's hand flew to her chest. Dad blinked, as if trying to process foreign words. Ethan wasn't done. "In fact," he continued, "Lena's firm was the lead designer for our entire Blackwell Tower expansion. The project just won the International Design Award last quarter." The room erupted into murmurs. Phones came out. People searched my name. Within seconds, I could see recognition spreading like wildfire. My sister's face drained of color. "That's you? The Lena Heart." I met her gaze evenly. "Last I checked, yes." Madison's fiancé tried to recover the tension with an awkward laugh. "Wow, that's impressive. You should have told us, Lena." I tilted my head. "Would you have listened?" Ethan placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "We're heading to the foundation dinner after this. You're still coming, right?" I nodded. "Wouldn't miss it." He turned to my family. "You should be proud. Not everyone has someone like her at their table." And with that, he excused himself, leaving a wake of stunned silence behind. When I sat down again, the energy had shifted entirely. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk. Madison stammered through a compliment. My mother whispered, "Why didn't you ever tell us?" I took a slow sip of champagne, my first of the night, and smiled faintly. Because sometimes the people who laugh the loudest need silence to learn the truth. Dad opened his mouth to respond, but the band started playing again. The spell broke, but the damage was done. The whispers continued, except this time, my name wasn't followed by pity, it was followed by awe. As I watched Madison dance under the chandelier, I realized something unexpected. I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel vindicated. I just felt free. For years, I had imagined this moment as revenge, a public reckoning. But now that it was here, all I saw was how small that old pain looked next to the life I had built. Still, I couldn't help glancing at Ethan across the room as he raised his glass toward me, a proud smile in his eyes. I smiled back, finally ready to stop hiding. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the girl at the corner table. I felt like the woman who owned the whole ballroom. By the next morning, my phone was flooded with messages, some from extended relatives who'd ignored me for years, others from old classmates suddenly eager to reconnect. But the ones that stood out came from Madison and my parents. Mom's message read, "Can we talk? We didn't know. We're proud of you, sweetheart." Dad's was shorter. "Lunch? My treat." And Madison, the sister who once laughed at me, wrote, "I owe you an apology. Please, can we meet?" Part of me wanted to delete them all. But another part, the one Grandma had raised to believe in grace, told me to give them a chance. So a week later, I invited them to my office. When they arrived, the look on their faces said everything. The 40th floor opened into a panoramic view of Lake Michigan. Polished marble floors. Warm light. My firm's name, Lena Hart Designs, gleamed on the glass wall behind my desk. Madison's mouth actually fell open. "You own this entire floor?" I nodded. "We just bought the building last quarter." Mom touched one of the framed photos on the wall, me and my team at an award gala. Her eyes shimmered. "You've built so much, Lena. I don't even know what to say." I gestured for them to sit. "Maybe start with the truth." The air shifted. Madison swallowed hard. "I was awful to you," she admitted. "We all were. I didn't think you'd ever forgive me." I really looked at her. Beneath the flawless makeup, she was shaking. "I already have," I said softly. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." I leaned forward, clasping my hands. "If you really want a relationship with me, there are conditions." Dad frowned. "Conditions?" "Yes," I said calmly. "No more mocking anyone's dreams. No more measuring worth by money or appearances. And if you want to be in my life, you'll treat people, not just me, with respect." Madison nodded quickly, eyes wet. "I will. I promise." I turned to my parents. "You don't have to understand the path I chose, but you will respect it. I'm not that girl you pushed into silence." Dad's voice cracked. "You've become someone remarkable, Lena." I smiled faintly. "No, Dad. I just became who I always was. You just never looked close enough." Mom wiped her eyes. "Can we start over?" I thought of Grandma's pendant resting against my collarbone, her words echoing in my mind. "Your worth isn't up for debate." "Yes," I said finally. "But this time, it'll be on my terms." They nodded, humbled. For once, no one in the room tried to talk over me. The silence felt different now. Not lonely, but respected. I had the power, yes, but more importantly, I had peace. Over the following months, something unexpected happened. They actually changed. Madison began volunteering with a women's mentorship group, helping young girls chase their own ambitions. My dad started supporting local small businesses, often telling people, "My daughter taught me that success doesn't come with a last name." And my mom, she simply called. Not to ask, not to pry, just to ask how I was doing. For the first time in my life, those words felt real. One Sunday afternoon, I hosted them all at my penthouse, a quiet dinner, nothing extravagant. Madison laughed easily, without comparison or envy. Mom brought her favorite pie. Even Dad offered to do the dishes, which might have been a miracle in itself. As the evening sunlight spilled through the glass windows, I slipped into my study and opened the small jewelry box on my desk. Inside, the gold heart pendant gleamed softly under the light. I traced the tiny engraving, "Your worth isn't up for debate." A lump formed in my throat. "You were right, Grandma," I whispered. "They finally see me, but I don't need their approval anymore." The truth was, I hadn't built my life to prove them wrong. Somewhere along the journey, the goal had changed. I'd built it to prove myself right, to honor the woman who refused to give up when no one believed in her. Ethan called later that night. "You good?" he asked, his voice easy and familiar. I smiled, watching the city lights flicker below. "Better than good. You did what most people only dream about," he said. "You turned pain into power." I laughed softly. "Guess that's what happens when you're banished to the corner table. You learn how to build your own." We said goodnight, and I walked out onto the balcony. The wind lifted my hair, the city buzzing with life below me. For the first time, I felt completely whole, not defined by where I'd come from, but by where I stood now. I held the pendant one last time, and whispered the words I wish someone had told me back then. They once banished me to a corner, but that corner became the foundation of my empire. Bottom of form.